came to destroy the works of the devil. What do you think our job description might be? To join him in destroying the works of the devil. So then filtering that through, well, how do we know what the works of the devil are and what the works of God are? So going to John 10:10, Jesus has just talked about the Good Shepherd, and he comes to the place where he says, okay, the thief, the enemy, what's his strategy? To kill and steal and destroy. My strategy is what? To give life in all of its abundance and fullness. So as we think about being called to join with Jesus to destroy the works of the devil, are we joining him in bringing abundant life to other people, or are we joining the other team by killing, stealing, and destroying? So now I can see I'm going to try to fit those scriptures together. So Jesus continues, after last week he talked about how blessed are the poor, blessed are those who weep, and now he goes on to say, okay, if you're going to join me in my ministry, let me show you what it's going to look like, especially when people are not nice to you, especially when people don't treat you well. Let me tell you what it looks like to play on my team, because if you're not playing on my team, guess whose team you are playing for by default? The other team. So Jesus says, and this is just sort of a quick little paraphrase, but assuming he's saying, do you have any enemies? And I'm sure a lot of them are nodding their heads saying, yes, we have enemies. And Jesus says, okay, you're on my team now, so let me tell you how to deal with enemies when you're on my team so that you can be part of my work, destroying the works of the devil and bringing abundant life. So the way that you do that on my team is you love your enemies. Because if you choose to say, well, they're my enemies, so they really don't deserve my love, so I'm going to hate them, basically what is Jesus saying? Whose team are we playing for? The enemy. We are basically joining the one who kills, steals, and destroys, even though we think we have a good reason to be on that team because they weren't nice to us. But who are we ultimately serving when we do that? The enemy. So he goes on to say, do you have people that hate you? Let me tell you how you can join my team when it comes to people who hate you. You do good to them. There's another option. You could say, well, they hate me, so they deserve for me to do bad things to them. But guess whose team you just joined when you do that? The one who kills and steals and destroys. Then he goes on to say, well, do you have people who curse you? If you're going to be on my team, bringing abundant life and destroying the works of the devil, let me tell you what you do to people who curse you. You bless them. And of course you could say, well, they cursed me, so they deserve to be cursed in return. But basically, whose team did you just join when you're cursing them in return? The one who kills and steals and destroys. Then he goes on to say, do you have people who abuse you? And once again, I'm sure some of his disciples are nodding their head up and down saying, yes, I do. And Jesus, and this is one where I'm going to do a little side disclaimer, where I just wanted to say that right from the beginning, there are people probably here today that are experiencing abuse. And I want to tell you, get away from that. Don't stay there. It's not spiritually strong to just put up with abuse, so get out of there. But now I want to go to say that as you get away from that abuse, how do you treat the person that abused you? So Jesus says, pray for them. If you're going to be on my team, the way that you respond to someone who has abused you after you get away from the abuse so you're in a safe place is to pray for that person. Because otherwise, even though you have every reason to hope that they die and fall off a cliff, whose team did you just join if that's the way that you're looking toward that person? The one who focuses on specializing in killing, stealing, and destroying. So when we choose how to love, then it goes on that if you wonder, is the golden rule in the Bible? Yes, it is. It's right here in Luke 6. And really the way that Jesus is inviting his disciples to look is not the way the world looks at things. The world would say, do unto others the way that they have done unto you. And that means that if they've done bad things to you, then you have every right to do bad things to them. But Jesus says that's not the way it works in my kingdom. The way it works in my kingdom is we don't treat people according to what they've done to us. We treat people according to what we would want to have done to us. So he says, you want to know what it looks like to be part of my team? Do you want to know what it looks like to be destroying the works of the devil? It's loving your enemies. That's the most powerful weapon we have against the works of the devil, is love. Loving your enemies, doing good to people, investing in people, not just when we're going to get a return on our investment for our own sake, but for the sake of being a blessing to others. Then Jesus says, it will be clear whose team you are on. If this is the way you love, it will be clear that you are children of the Most High. Because that's what he looks like. Jesus comes to reveal to us what the Father is like, and he says, this is what he looks like. He's kind to the ungrateful. He's kind to the wicked. So be merciful because your Father is merciful. So what is our ultimate goal in this? It's to destroy the works of the devil, not by yelling louder at the person who yelled at us or hitting harder the person who hit us first, but the way that we destroy the works of the devil is by doing what our Father did to us. What did he do to us? While we were sinners, while we were enemies of God, what did he do to us? He had mercy. He loved us. He showed grace. So we're invited to do what God did for us, to destroy the works of the devil. And Jesus gives us a picture of what that looks like in Luke chapter 6. So I want to invite you today to think. I have two big hard questions today, and this is the first hard question. When you look seriously at your life, how much of the time do you play on Jesus' team, helping to bring life to people? And how much time do you, even if it's against people that you think deserve it, how much time do you spend playing on the enemy's team, where you're actually multiplying, killing, stealing, and destroying, rather than giving life? So that's the first big question. So you made it out of 3 of the 5 texts I'm going to look at. So this next part will go quicker. But the next one that I'm going to look at is to look at the story of Joseph through Ephesians 6:12. Where in Ephesians, Paul says, and this is, he's writing from prison while he is being mistreated because of his faithfulness to Christ. And what does he say? Our enemies are not flesh and blood. Our enemies are those spiritual powers that end up causing us to destroy each other, kill each other, steal from each other. Those are our enemies. So my question to you, well, first let's look at what Joseph did. Joseph had every right to say, you know what, my brothers hated me, they talked about killing me, they sold me into slavery, and he didn't know yet, but they went home and lied to their father saying that he was dead. That sounds like a good enough reason to want to get retribution on your brothers, right? But did Joseph see his brothers at this point of the story as his enemies? No, he didn't. He realized that they were not his enemies. He realized that the biggest enemies would be allowing division to happen in his family. And what was really the biggest enemy going on in that part of the world at that time? There was a famine going on. So what he said is, okay, brothers, I'm not against you. I'm with you as we confront this famine that's going to be happening in the next 5 years. So he chose to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, even though he had every right to use his power to kill his brothers, steal their freedom, destroy their future, but he chose instead to contribute to them having life in all of its fullness. And he gave a picture of what it looks like to not treat flesh and blood as our enemies. So my second really hard question, I realize these are hard questions. The first one was, whose team do you tend to play on? The second one is, who are your enemies, or what are your enemies? Make a list of your enemies this week. And if you discover that most of your enemies are names of physical people, I'm going to tell you that's the wrong answer. They're not your enemies. Your enemy is the one who seeks to bring division in your family. Your enemy is the one who's causing you to hate your spouse, to be unfaithful, to cause division in your family, to cause division in your workplace, to cause division in your church. Not that that would ever happen. But nobody else in this church is your enemy. Nobody else in your workplace is your enemy. You might not like them, they might not treat you well, but as we are called to destroy the works of the devil, Jesus just described what that looks like. So, some hard questions this week. Whose team do you play on? And how can you spend more of your time playing on the side of the one who gives life in all of its fullness, rather than the one who kills and steals and destroys? And who is your enemy? And start crossing off the names of people, and start seeing that it's really the one who is causing you to have division. the one who's seeking to destroy and to tear apart and kill, that he is the enemy. And you're called not to be against the person, but you're called to come alongside that person to really fight against the real enemy, the one who seeks to destroy families, destroy relationships, destroy communities, destroy schools, destroy churches. We're to be standing side by side facing that enemy, not fighting each other. Amen.